If I could just find out where we've all gone. Hattie, you got to fill whilst I find out where we are. Hattie, say something interesting.
Um, you put me right on the spot.
Hattie, where are you? Where are you?
I am on the Isle of Lewis. I'm
No.
on the Isle of Lewis. I'm
Mark,
kind of
Isaac, isn't that amazing that Hattie's all the way up there and that you got an internet signal?
you know what? I was a bit worried about that because I don't get any mobile signal at all up here. So if the Wi-Fi is down and it cuts out, then I'm afraid you guys are gonna have to talk about extreme weather.
Oh no, don't worry. We've been there before. But I've got this picture, Hattie. Have you got a relative outside on a bike with a generator? Let's just keep it. Oh, you got another relative pointing a dish somewhere over here. Is that how this is all working out?
To be honest, I have thought about a wind turbine because it's we get 55 mile an hour gusts is just run of the mill up here. So can you imagine having your electricity hooked up to the wind turbine or something? But we'll see.
You
Well,
just love the DeLorean on that.
Yeah.
yeah. Guys, isn't there that great joke from Billy Connolly about the fantastic summers in Scotland that they're great for that half day in June when they happen?
Yeah.
So Hattie, is that the same with yourself and your relatives? That have you ever seen them without a jumper on?
Yeah, about 2 days a year, 3 days a year, about that.
Fantastic. Right. All the social media lights are now on. Shall we do this properly? Before we get going, Hattie, we're really honoured to have you on here today for a couple of reasons. Because you're Hattie, but also, Mark, tell everyone why we're celebrating all of that. Go, Mark.
Yeah, no, we've reached a bit of a milestone. It's our 50th episode, our 50th broadcast of Talking Leaders, which was a bit of a harebrained idea several years ago. And yeah, 50 guests, 50 broadcasts. Looking into people from all around the world and all industries to get some insights. Yeah, really cool.
Isaac, any comments on that? We're a bit disappointed with the size of your tree, by the way, but carry on.
So we can talk about the size of my tree in a bit. But yeah, no, it's very, very honoured to have Hattie and a nice closing of the circle as well, because Hattie is the AHDB sponsored Nuffield Scholar this year.
Fantastic.
Have just presented in Aberdeen, absolutely smashed it out of the park. Hattie was the first on the first day, so and that is not a slot and anybody envies, and there's a lot of pressure. And yeah, absolutely well done, Hattie, and you really nailed it. So very, very happy and honoured to have you here and for our 50th special broadcast. And if you're watching this live or in the next week or so, it's in our Christmas edition. If not, and if you're watching this later on catch up, bad luck.
So guys, let me just do this formally, especially for the people on the podcast, because we're streaming live to LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, but also we're on the podcast. So I'm just going to reminisce quickly, Hattie, if you just bear with me being indulgent with these two lovely individuals and the rest of the fantastic AHDB team. In the last 49 Talking Leaders, we've basically covered the entire leadership toolkit, sometimes with muddy boots on. We've gone from who said farmers won't meditate to stay at the top of your mountain. Thanks all Olympians who we've had on, Mark. Detoured through negotiation tactics, equality, diversity, inclusion, and the occasional reminder that none of us fit neatly in one box. We've made sexy soils a legitimate agenda item, tackled food systems and natural capital, and proved that leadership's lessons show up everywhere, from Twickenham team culture to dairy weather reality checks, upcoming in a minute. We've zoomed out to global agribusiness vision, zoomed in on personal resilience, hello mental fitness and Blue Monday, and somewhere along the way we've probably all become slightly better humans, if not at least better at asking smarter questions. So welcome to broadcast number 50, the Big 50, same brilliant AHDB partnership, same beanstalk energy, and no pressure, but today's guest of Hattie has to top meditating farmers and sexy soils in one go. So we're joined today by Hattie. Hattie, help me with your surname, because everyone murders my surname. I'm not going to murder your surname. Tell us how you pronounce your surname.
It's McFadzean. So it's like fudge, but with an A. It's spelt McFadzean, obviously, but McFadzean. It's a Scottish name, down to Scott.
Talk about the best way to knock your surname out of the park. And Hattie is the Senior Sustainability Consultant at the fantastic Promar International. And as the guys just said, recent Nuffield Farming Scholar. And we got her on to tackle one of the biggest practical issues facing UK agriculture, how dairy farmers can adapt and build resilience in the face of increasingly unpredictable weather patterns. Hattie, has that been a good introduction? Anything that you'd like to add about your good self, please?
No, I think that's pretty good. I'm happy to have yeah, I think Promar's been really good. I've enjoyed being on the team there and yeah, cracking on with Nuffield. It very much kind of is something that I think this sector needs to kind of run through a little bit more and get a little bit more clued up on. So I'm quite thankful actually that I've had the space and the right timing to say, look, I want to do a Nuffield right now. Promar have said, yeah. AHDB have said, yeah, we want to sponsor you. And jobs are good. And I've just cracked on over the past 2 years, which is, yeah, has been good.
And Hattie, thank you. Just before the gents steal you back again, just tell people, the uninitiated, the people that don't know Nuffield, what is Nuffield? Why
Yeah.
did you get involved? And also what happened at the conference, specifically in respect of yourself? 3-stage question, go.
Sure. So Nuffield is this really good kind of trust this organization that basically believes we can advance agriculture in the UK by sending passionate people abroad to learn from farmers and then bring home that learning and enact change. That's the basic premise of Nuffield. And I actually got into it. I think I was chewing off the ear of a colleague too much. It was Duncan Williams, who was at Promar at the time. I was like, Duncan, no one's doing anything about climate resilience. No one's doing anything about adaptation. The weather's becoming more volatile. We could do whatever. And I think he was practically like, Hattie, can you stop talking to me about this and actually go do something? So he had done a Nuffield and he was like, go apply to Nuffield. It is an intimidating process applying for Nuffield, but you get through it, and I think the more intimidating the process, the more elated you are afterwards. So
Brilliant.
I don't know if that's how they design it that way, but you're sent to this big kind of office in London to answer a load of questions and don't shake anyone's hand, sit down, answer questions, get out, walk out again. So I was absolutely elated that I got it. And then essentially you get 2 years to go travel. You come back and write a report, do a load of videos, make sure you put it on social media and share your findings. And then in November in Aberdeen this year, I was tasked with presenting. And it's a 12-minute slot to
12
present.
minutes.
Yeah, 12 minutes to present 2 years.
Wow.
And as Isaac said, I was up first on the first day, which I was nervous about. And bless my partner, I did the presentation about 30 times the week before.
Okay.
So they were absolutely sick of it. But by the time I got to the stage, it went better than expected. And then, to be honest, I could then switch off after my presentation, completely switched off, and just got to listen to my amazing cohort talk about what they've done and didn't have to worry about mine. So
Well,
yeah.
Isaac, we're not being competitive, but you intimated earlier that Hattie was very good.
She was very good. Yes, and definitely one of the very best presentations there on the day. So yes, and we, as AHDB, were very, very proud sponsors. It's quite interesting how so there's almost like a parental things, and as AHDB, as you know, with the levy organization, we do all sorts of things from marketing through to data analysis and research and all of those things. But one of the things that we're really proud of is this relationship and this partnership with Nuffield, where we sponsor a scholar every year, and so we try and really align it with our goals and our aims from AHDB, and this whole thing around climate resilience. When Hattie came in for the interview, I sat in on the interviews and
Did you?
and were blown away at that point, and thought, yes, and this is definitely something that we as AHDB should look at, and what a great way to have somebody like Hattie with that passion go out into the world and find out all of these things and come back. And the plan is definitely to work with Hattie and our environment team. We've just completed the baselining project, so yes, and there's lots to come still of this relationship and this partnership with Hattie. So very excited for what has been, but also for what's coming down the line.
Well done. And just to applaud AHDB to Hattie, we're going to talk like you're not in the room, for promoting people like Hattie, because Hattie is the future of the sector. Just as a slight segue, 3 weeks ago, I went to the British Potato Show up in Harrogate, and everyone I spoke to was actually so pleasantly surprised that there was a really young cohort of young men and young women at that show. And so even though the potatoes have had a tough year, everyone was actually, and people would mention it without without me having to bring it up. Look at this younger generation coming through. This is brilliant. Mark, would you agree with me? This is a good thing that AHDB are doing and promoting the likes of Hattie.
Oh, definitely, and you're right. We need to elevate our next generation and the next team of leaders, which is exactly where Hattie's going to be, and really looking forward to hearing now in terms of what she's learned, what she's got out of it, and yeah, where next for Hattie after completing her Nuffield. Also, if there's anyone online and live and they want to chuck some questions in, please, there's a chat box, so ping that in and we'll do our absolute utmost to pull those in. But Hattie, let's start thinking about your project and adaptation and weather. So you've been around the world, which is the great privilege of being a Nuffield Scholar and seen some massive things from the dairy sector and from other systems. What do you think UK farmers could learn from some of your findings that you found, and how could they apply that to being a bit more resilient? Start with a big question.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I think my main kind of message is that we need to get going now before things start to happen to us that make us change. And it's a bit of a tricky concept because as humans, as a species, we're quite risk averse. We are risk averse, but also if risk happens in the future, we kind of don't worry about it until it's staring us in the face. So I didn't really know that was going to be a main area of focus for me when I started traveling. I kind of thought, right, I want to go to the US, I want to go to Mexico, I want to go to Ireland, I want to go to India. I actually really wanted to go to Cuba as well, and I got so close to being able to go to Cuba, but for various reasons had to let that dream die. So maybe that'll come back in the future. And essentially, the first kind of concrete thing was there are millions of adaptation options, like absolutely loads. And some of them require huge capital investment, and some of them you can do tomorrow. And I think that's a really powerful kind of calming message, first and foremost, because a lot of people think this topic is quite scary and we like to put our head in the sand. Actually, we've got a load of options on our tool belt, so to speak. And those were different in different places. So for Ireland, for example, you might say, well, why did you go to Ireland? They don't have extreme weather. Well, actually, they're quite similar to us, but their landscape is very different. So I wanted to see what they were doing. And after the 2018 drought, a lot of farmers changed the way that they were farming. They did stress tests. They did small scale kind of pilot tests on individual fields, and they kind of worked in this kind of risk adversity to the way that they were financially planning for the future in their systems. And then on the flip side, you've got places like Mexico, where huge money is going into dairy at the minute. You've got 40% profit on every litre of milk that you're producing. And you can essentially build farms from the ground up with resilience in mind. But because the weather is so extreme, and I was in 50-degree heats in Mexico. I don't know if anyone's been in 50-degree heat. You must have, Isaac. But I
don't think you have, but yeah,
I was really uncomfortable, and I was like, why aren't these cows dead on the floor? But these are high input, high output Holsteins there's 30,000 of them.
Wow.
In a place that can get up to 50-degree heat. And it's kind of like, what on earth is going on here? So there's different messages from different places. If you were redesigning your system completely, if you got given a patch of land, you would look to what the US are doing, what Mexico is potentially doing on how to design that system from the ground up. If you're then looking at India or Ireland, you essentially says, what tweaks can we make using data, using technology, using mindset changes, to adapt my current system. And I think, without rambling too much, I think that is a bit of a problem that we've got in the UK when it comes to climate resilience, because our farms are quite old, actually, and that's not a bad thing, but we design them step by step. We say, here's a shed, and now here's another shed, here's another shed, and here's another shed. And our shed right in the middle isn't necessarily fit for those heat stress days, example. So the findings, number one, they're massive and across the board, and we've got a lot of tools to adapt existing systems and create new systems. But actually, the number of them is quite calming. I came back from those travels and thought, maybe we're not in such a bad place as I thought, as long as we get on and do something about it, which is interesting.
That's really nice. That's because I think, I've speak to friends and people like that, and inside and outside of farming, and I think sometimes because it feels so overwhelming and so too much to handle, some people do just put their heads in the sand. In fact, one of my favorite people of all time is a Nuffield Scholars is Jill Hutchington Smith. She was a 1952 scholar. I think she's 97 or something like that now. Wow. We're actually at this cloning place up in Cheshire, and we're all a bit, wow, this is quite overwhelming, and cloning and all that. She thought, what do you think of this, Jill? And she said, it's absolutely marvelous. And I'm actually getting really peed off. She uses a much stronger word there, saying about people that send young people down because they are going to save the future. Have you found that? And what were sort of the really inspiring people that you felt and is tackling this head on in a pragmatic way? And who were some of the standout visits that you had on that?
I think there's this guy called Professor Solorio, who's in the Yucatan jungle of Mexico, and he was a professor on ecosystems and biodiversity, etc., and how we can use regenerative farming practices to become more resilient. And he essentially he was teaching this in a classroom in Yucatan and said, all right, this isn't how people learn. So he essentially bought this really degraded cactus plantation in the Yucatan jungle. And if you could imagine, I saw some pictures that he showed me, just looking out on stony land that cactus like to grow out of. And he was basically saying, how do we become resilient? How do we produce dairy on a resilient system? And what is the best way I can show this is actually to take this really degraded land and make it into a profitable dairy production system. Now, we're talking about low input, low output, which is important because you need to adapt the dairy system to the particular land. But by using like agroforestry, by doing forage trials, by working with stocking rates, and he actually blended the dairy herd with beef, sheep, poultry, etc. Over the past 30 years, he has created this system that was actually like you could stand there and he was so proud of it, and he would invite young people to come and essentially pitch trials to him and say, well, what about this? What about that? And he said, yeah, go do it. We'll absolutely put it on that land. So I remember standing there. It was 95% humidity that day, so I was also uncomfortable. I was just uncomfortable the whole of Mexico, but it was worth it. It's listening to people who have actually like thrown everything into it. And then on the flip side, you had people who had really kind of heartbreaking stories to tell about the mortality of cows hit 20%, or their mental health was absolutely on the floor because forage variability was too much for them to handle, etc. And the way that they spoke, it was quite emotionally about rebuilding and adapting that system to become resilient, are probably the areas that are going to stay with me the most. It's not really like somebody who is, I think it's impressive when somebody invests in a new adaptation option, but it sticks with you more, doesn't it, when somebody is saying, this is why I'm doing it, and I want to show people what I'm doing, and I want to encourage people to do the same, and for them to make mistakes on my farm so that they don't have to on on theirs later in life, etc., etc. So the kind of emotional aspect of it, I didn't expect it to be that emotional. I don't know if you found the same, Isaac, on yours.
I think it is, and that's music to my ears, because that's exactly my kind of take and how I think, the technical side and all of that is great, but it's the people behind it. That's what's bring anything alive. Any business that are really successful, there will be a great leader or great leaders in that business. There'll be great people in that business that can tell the story, to share the vision, share some what they are all about. I think that is really the only thing that set good and less good business apart, is the people, and how they can tell that story and bring people along. Because that is, I love that answer, because it is about the people. So the people, the people.
So Hattie, here's a loaded question. Say that you're meeting a bunch, and you must have done this already. Say you're meeting a bunch, a number of high caliber dairy farmers, because all UK dairy farmers are high caliber, and they hear your presentation and they go, "So Hattie, what's the fix for the UK with this uncertainty? Sorry, it's a $1 million question, but how would you respond?"
I would say, there are some short-term things that we can do on every farm, and that's if it depends whether we're talking about heat stress or forage variability or what. Let's say in the UK, I am going to stand here and say that the majority might not have enough water troughs, for example. And issues like that, they've got enough water in general, but you've got to have 10 centimeters of water space per cow, a little bit less if you're grazing. Now, issues like that, they're almost like you can put them at the bottom of the pyramid. You make sure they have shade, they make sure they have water, they make sure they have food, right? We need to get those building blocks right. And they're quite an easy sell, because the response from milk yield is tangible, and that's now.
Well done. Okay.
The bit that I'm struggling on, and that I'm going to spend a lot more time on, is how do I convince people that if they make an investment now, they will get a payback for that in 10, 20 years time, when the weather becomes more volatile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same. AHDB did that thing. It was this year or last year where you focused on succession planning. It's how do you convince people that it's worth investing into 10, 20, 30 years time, and that's the more difficult part, I think.
Yeah. And everyone, could you even take it to another level? I remember when I was at college, we had a tutor who always advocated that Scotland should just grow beef cattle, East Anglia should just grow barley, Wales should just grow sheep. Sweet corn should be grown in the north of France when we were part of the European Union, if you remember that. Hattie, do you think we'd actually get to that point, that we should be even bigger and bolder and say, Ms. Dairy farmer, where your farm isn't suitable, you need to sell up and move over there to future proof?
It depends, because I don't actually think our weather is extreme enough for that, if I'm honest. There are some places that with desertification and with your current level of forage, etc., you need to start irrigating, or you need to move your farm, and that's just the way it will go for some countries.
Okay.
In the UK, it's not like that yet. We are predicting, in a lot of cases, actually forage production is going to get easier, which is again a really positive story. But forage variability is going to become more variable. So on average, we can produce more forage over climate change because it's getting warmer.
Yep.
But forage variability, so our year to year, is going to be more. So it's how do you adapt your system, not completely change it. And again,
Hattie, can I interrupt? Henry from the West Country, why is forage production going to get easier? Sorry for the uninitiated.
Because essentially, because we're getting warmer, we might extend our grazing system, our grazing season. So especially for the guys on really heavy soils that get a lot of waterlog, they might actually find that their grazing system their grazing period is going to extend.
Got it.
Yeah. So, but this is highly variable, and the variability is actually something that we've got to get our head around. Yeah.
Okay, so it comes down to the same thing. Just talking about that's it's future proofing, and we've got to have farmers and the sector has got to take that on board and take that leap of faith. And Hattie, again, that's why we need your sort of level of expertise together. Mark, come on, you're a dairy farmer of old. We were talking about this in the green room. You're our predominant dairy expert. Do you agree with Hattie?
I wouldn't say expert. I still milk cows, yes. But no, it is interesting. And just that little point that you've made about heat stress and heat as an issue and water tank space. That's such a common thing. There's no disrespect to dairy farmers, is because there's always been 4 tanks there. Well, actually, they need 5. And it's just that habitual thing that you need to enact something rather than actually to make some change. You've got to intend to do it and actually fingers do it, which is always going to be the difficult thing. But no, it's so thinking about some of our UK dairy farmers, this is going to be applicable as well to any farmers, not just dairy. I know you focused on dairy, but thinking about risks and weather risks in the UK, which do you think are the ones that are really underestimated in the UK and we haven't really thought as much about in terms of those weather risks, because we do have such a variable climate?
Yeah. It's flooding and heat. They're the two that we need to pay attention to. For those that flood now, you're likely going to be expecting flooding to get worse. For those that don't flood and aren't at risk at flooding, it's how you capture that rainfall event that happens. So in the future, our summers are going to get hotter and drier, and our winters are going to get warmer and wetter. But essentially around the year when it does rain, those rainfall events are going to be shorter and harder. So you get this problem of how do we capture the rain when it does rain? If we could store it all and then nicely just like dissipate it across the land when we need it, jobs are good and jobs done. So, but that's a real big issue, which I have less answers to, apart from improving your organic matter of soils. That's really the crux of it, and working with water catchments to try and kind of mitigate flooding. On the heat stress side of things, we do not in the UK fully realise how much heat stress is impacting our herds. And there's no fault of our own. It's because traditionally we haven't had to deal with it. We have, some places get 5-6 days of heat stress in the summer on, for the past 20 years or something. It's not new, but it's not deadly. So that's why we don't really kind of invest into a lot of time as an industry generally into this issue of heat stress. But if we think a cow can start getting heat stress at 22 degrees, exactly, we start getting heat stress at 32 degrees. So that's why we don't realise it. If we are in shorts and t-shirt on a farm, our cows are heat stressed. And now, if they cool down at night, then the impacts of heat stress isn't as bad. But if they don't cool down at night, which happened in July this year, that's when we start getting the impacts on milk yield. That's when we start getting lameness. Lameness can follow 2 months after a heat event, by the way. So if people had lameness instances in September, October, and they were scratching their heads as to why, it's probably because they were heat stressed 2 months before. Yeah. They're standing more. They have a decreased lying time. So there's a plethora of things that we completely, it's hard for us to capture. And the other thing, I could ramble about this for hours, but the other thing that's really interesting that I found out over this 2 years, I stopped, it's concerning of our lactating cows when they get heat stress, because we can see that change in behavior and we can see that change in milk yield. When you look into the research of what heat stress does for dry cows, I actually think it's more concerning. If your dry cow gets heat stressed, she not only impacts her lactation for next yield, she impacts her calf's lifetime lactation and that calf's lifetime lactation.
Good grief.
Wow.
Honestly, it's insane. And the research was done in Florida, which they have chronic heat stress for about 8 months of the year. So it's highly dependent, again, on whether that dry cow has heat stress for 3 days and cools down at night. But these are the kind of the things that we don't really understand in the UK because we haven't had to deal with them so much.
And they're not quick fixes. These are long-term, potentially. And there's loads of options, which is great, but
Yeah.
preventing a flood is quite a capital rich in a long-term project. Like I say, heat stress. Would you say that because of our variable weather within the UK, and we don't, and yeah, we're out in shorts and t-shirt, which cows are still seeing heat stress because those periods of really high heat may be quite short and sporadic.
Yeah.
It's deemed as, it's only a couple of days at 30 degrees, and then we're back down to normal average temperatures. That'd be fine.
I spoke to a professor in Georgia about this, Georgia, US, and he was actually more concerned about cows in temperate climates and cooler because they're having to quickly adapt to heat stress and then quickly going down, quickly going up. Whereas he was basically suggesting that in Florida and Georgia and the southern US states, your cows know what's coming. You kind of take that very seriously. But we're kind of like, as long as they can get through the next 3 days, we're fine. So that, I think, there are again easy wins that we could do to mitigate that level of heat stress only just for those 3 day periods. I mean, a lot of some people, I don't know, it took to putting water on their cows, for instance. And it's very like it's a thing that we would think, yeah, if I'm hot, I want to take a cold shower. Let's do that to the cows. Let's put a hose on them or put a little plug holes into a hose pipe and put it over the collecting yard. The trouble is, because we're not experienced at dealing with heat stress, if we wet our cows and leave them damp in a hot environment, it just causes them to get covered in warm water.
Oh, grief.
Yeah, which doesn't help so much. So if we are putting water on our cows, we need to then dry them. We need to blow them with fans, etc., etc. So, and it's a learning curve. We're going to learn, and that's absolutely fine.
Can I jump in, guys? And Hattie will know this. There's a contact of mine who's currently in Portugal for Christmas, but he works in the UAE running a big dairy unit. And I won't name the dairy unit, but Hattie, you'll have a better understanding of it. The 5,000 head of dairy in an air-conditioned unit, and it's to me it's bonkers because they're bringing in fodder from 3 countries away. But it's air conditioned, and they have vets on site. I suppose the difference with that model is that in some respects it's not about making a profit because they're so well invested. They want to be self-sufficient in key things. But with your travels, could you see that air conditioning as with a number of farms having solar or wind, that answer to keeping that average temperature for the cow to stop lameness and to keep it up? Could you see at some point if a farm is being built from new, that it will be in one big block and it will have air conditioning for will we learn from these other countries to make ourselves future proof as you've already intimated?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends if it stacks up economically or if people are able to do it in the UK. I don't think we're close to air conditioning at all. I think there's a lot of air ventilation systems that will do the job for the UK. But then you get I was speaking to a few kind of people on robots recently, which said, I've got fans and misters in my shed, and I was still seeing a 1 to 2 litres of milk drop over the hot period in July and August this year. Will they turn to air conditioning? I've got no idea. But people are in more extreme climates. People are doing that.
Yeah, I didn't know that bit about the nighttime temperatures. If they remain up, that affects the Mark, we're learning so much today.
So, Hattie, I'm going over to Holland early in January with a bunch of dairy farmers. I can actually see Andrew Fletcher is signed up. He's part of that group. There, they've got the whole things in government getting really involved with. So there, it's about some nitrogen and that side of things. But overall, so where do you see the balance between government involvement, people like us, AHDB, Promar, or some other consultancy companies are available, and all the industry farmers taking things like this on board themselves? Because if this becomes a public image problem or anything like that, how do you think we can work better together as different parts of the industry to work on whether it's climate adaptation or water quality or whatever the case. And how do you think that we can work better together?
From a government perspective, I do think that climate adaptation practices should be incentivized. I think it's for the betterment of the dairy industry as a whole, and you can extend that out to other industries as well. But just talking about dairy because that's not what I know best. It would be nice to see schemes in the future that has something in there like technology funding at the minute, like SFI, etc., that would kind of encapsulate this adaptation goal as a whole. And we actually have a UK adaptation plan. Agriculture is not mentioned a lot in it. It is in there. And actually somebody did a review of how we're doing on that, and we're scoring really low on how well agriculture is adapting at the minute as part of this adaptation plan. So government needs to realise that they have a role to play in this. And then I think where AHDB, myself, and others come into the role is basically removing this burden from farmers to have to understand what's going to happen. So there's a lot that we could do, and I think we need to place the Met Office and similar organisations slap bang in the middle, along with AHDB, along with Dairy UK, processors, everything like that, and consultancies, to remove that burden and say, right, these are 20 rule of thumb figures that farmers can use to understand what's going to happen in the future. And some work has been done on that already, like heat stress. There is a projection of heat stress. I think it's by 2050, Southeast and Southwest are going to see about 40 days on average of heat stress per year. That is a worst case scenario. They've used a higher emission scenario than perhaps what we're going to have. But anyway, so that 40 days really sticks in your head and goes, and then when you're stress testing and financial stress testing on farm, you can say, well, what if I hit 40 days? And we need the same for forage variability. Yeah. So actually we need to say let's say your forage variability, if we're varying around 20 to 30% year on year now, what if that hits 50% year on year? And that's the kind of rule of thumb, really easy, tangible principles that I think AHDB can showcase on their platform. Other people can showcase. Met Office should run. Advisors like myself should know, and that removes that burden off of farmers and gives them a quick and easy solution. So I think there's stacks of collaboration that could be done.
Hattie, well done. There's 2 stars out on the circuit today, yourself and Minette Batters. I'm just reading someone just highlighted to me, Johan Tasker, the great Johan from Farmers Weekly. Long-awaited farming profitability review by Minette Batters has landed. Yeah. Calls for a new deal for profitable farming that recognises true cost of producing food and delivering for the environment. I haven't read it yet, but I'm sure lots of people will be jumping onto it now to see to merge that with your commentary to see where that takes us. Yeah. Exciting times.
It is. I saw that release just before this, and I was like, nope, I do not have enough time to dip into that right now. Yeah. But be a good Christmas reading for everybody, I suppose.
Just coming back to the practicalities of it. You know what I'm going to say? Drum roll. AI. Everything we talked about. Do you think there's going to be a deployment of AI that will be able to help the farming sector with all of these issues? Yeah. To give what. Take it away.
I mean, there's a few people at the minute. I got shown one platform that I can't remember the name of this week that essentially you can dump all of your reports into, and then it would digest all those reports and feed back to you. And I think it might be a solution to the data problem that we have. We collect a lot of data, but we don't have the time to utilize it.
Yeah.
So on a data utilization perspective, if AI can pick out what's happening and actually make those impacts of heat stress or flooding or forage variability tangible to you.
Yeah.
Great. Crack on, I think.
Yeah. My naivety of the dairy sector, you've all must have seen that iconic picture of a chap in his tractor, and he's got 5 different screens for 5 different systems. Is that the same in dairy? That dairy is just overloaded with data, whether it be feed, whether it be milk, whether it be...
I think, Mark, you'll be able to comment on this as well, but I think there's a lot of data that you can collect if you want to collect it. There's a lot of data that has to be collected because of the integrated systems, etc. I think the bit that I'm thinking of is that there's a lot of different players that want that data and want to steer you in different directions. And if we can use something to make that more cohesive, I think that would be a massive benefit. I don't know what you think, Mark.
Yeah, no, I think you're bang on right. It's like one of these phones that collects huge amounts of data on a day-to-day basis that I don't utilize hardly any of it. The beauty of it is it's in one place. And I think probably the issue within the dairy sector and probably wider in farming sectors and probably other industries is there's lots of ways of collecting data and it's not all merged together. One of the teams at AHDB, we've got the data custodian team, which are trying to work out ways of creating a kind of a hub where that data goes in, and then said processor, said buyer, said whoever it may be can actually draw the information out that they need in one place, that it's still owned by the farmer. We're not stealing data and things like that. So there's a massive project within AHDB following that data custodianship.
I think it's trying to, oh, sorry, Max. I think it's trying to also automate that data input process, because we're spending a lot of time putting that data into systems and in the right place and for the right person. And if we can kind of quicken that up, it creates more time for us to utilize that data and then make decisions based off that data.
Hattie, we've said on this broadcast a number of times before that we can learn so much from other sectors. You look at the automotive sector, that they're JIT, just in time, and they have great collaborations, but even they fail. I don't know if you all heard the story from a couple of years ago about Range Rover. Range Rover came out with a new Range Rover, and they had the configuration element on their website. And so sales came in on a Monday morning and said, "Oh, we've sold 60,000 Range Rovers." And the production team said, "What? How have we done that?" And it turned out that there was so many people had built the Range Rover on a voyeuristic basis, never been able to afford it, but they just wanted to build it all up. But the way that the system had worked, it had sent it through to ordering as a completed order, so that Range Rover were just about to be triggered to build 60,000 new Range Rovers when probably only a couple of that. So yeah, the data's got to be spot on that basis. But Hattie, you're excited about that data. You can see that's going to give USP, wrong word. That's going to give an advantage to dairy farmers ongoing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we're getting better and better at utilizing data all the time.
But Hattie, what about cultural change? I think again, Mark and I just talked about this. That when automatic milkers first came out, I think it's Lely, Lel. When they went to Ireland to try and sell them. And the biggest problem they found was adoption by the farmers, saying, "Well, if I can't milk my cows, what am I going to do?" Well, you could meet a wife. You could go out, but you could. Do you think this is going to be a problem within the sector, or has the sector got more sophisticated now, or are there going to be some people saying, "I don't want to change my shed. I don't want to change my." The climate can do whatever it's going to do. We're not change. You come across that resistance?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you always get that. I think that's just human nature to have that variability, especially in my sector as a sustainability consultant. As soon as some people hear the word sustainability, it's kind of like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that. Whereas actually, sustainability is farm efficiency. They are one and the same thing. So I think it does need a mindset shift. I think a lot of this has to do with system boundaries as well. Like, can your system cope with 600 cows, especially if the weather changes in the future? Bit of a painful conversation to have if you've spent the past 10 years working up to 600 cows. But again, with the link between sustainability and farm efficiency, resilience essentially is trying to bulletproof your farm in the future. I kind of view it as you've got your farm, it's like hitting a sponge. The weather can do whatever it wants to your farm, and you kind of expand back to your state. And so the mindset shift, some people will get it quicker than others. The people that don't, there'll be a certain percentage which wait for that kind of really harsh event to happen, and then it's a bit of a wake-up call. But there's that middle ground, which I think utilizing financial aspects, financial figures will help with that cultural and mindset shift.
Create that societal change. Okay, and just extrapolating that a little bit further, our friends to the never eat shredded wheat to the west, rather large country, 250 million, interesting government in place. What's your words, Max? They're moving away from sustainability. They're moving away from ESG, from green energy, and you have the likes of BlackRock and Disney moving away, and we're seeing some of that being reflected in the UK. Do you think this is going to slow up this change within farming, because there's a societal change in other countries that are saying this isn't making any money? Drill, baby, drill.
I mean, perhaps, but we've got such momentum on sustainability in the UK. Like
Well
in
done.
Promar, we cannot get enough people in to do the projects that we do. Like it's really good, and I think we've got a little bit of a USP. We are boots on the ground, and we're working with processors. I don't think sustainability is going to slow down in the UK. I think it's private. A lot of the work that we do is in the private sector, and the private sector are winning contracts off the back of their sustainable milk. Again, it just boosts demand for those projects. And if we focus on the fact that it's farm efficiency, we'll keep cracking on. I'm not too worried.
Back to a sort of more the sort of practical side of it. Were there any practice that you've seen that you thought, this is almost too easy, this is too simple, so why haven't more people thought of this?
Collars, something like collars, pedometers, they're not new to the UK, but the way people were utilising them with fertility and heat stress are really good. Fans, there is 1,000 things that we could do with fans in the UK to make them work better. Smoke should be clearing out of your shed in under a minute. If it's not, your fans aren't doing what they're meant to do. There's other revolutionary stuff, I would say, but it's, again, in the UK, we need water, shade provision. People aren't going to like the whole tree. A lot of people will go for shade provision utilising trees, but there's actually a lot of movable shade structures that people use abroad that we don't really use in the UK. I certainly haven't seen many of them. I think the big kind of penny drop moments, unfortunately, it's a bit of a boring answer, was how they were utilising their data to understand what's happening with heat stress and floods and forage variability on farm. It's such a boring answer, but it was true. People had really kind of dug into what was happening. I can't remember if I said this, but your fertility of your cow can change at 14 degrees.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's okay, because they're naturally cyclical animals. They naturally like to work to a season, so that's why. But it's utilizing all of this, I think, which is going to be the most important part.
But in your all year round housed cows in the summers, and unless you've got a really good system, you don't think of the fact that and fertility is such a driving part of any system. But get to 14 degrees and you start getting reduced fertility, that in itself should be like on a banner to say this is their reason to sort out in your sheds and fans and whatever misters, whatever you're doing, because that at 14 degrees, so your cow's fertility start to change, and then by 20 degrees she's heat stressed.
Someone said if your cow howls, you should be wearing a hoodie inside the shed. If you're not wearing a hoodie, then it's too warm, which I think it'll be quite interesting to get us all to hoodie wearing inside a shed. But there's also, I want to plug Gale Breaker's THI Live website. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's essentially, they have got temperature humidity indexes on a load of indoor housed cow dairy systems in the UK, and you can log on to THI Live and see the heat stress indicator of those house cows. So it might not be the most relevant for grazing, but even if you're in the collecting yard or whatever, it's just good to know. Like, are cows heat stressed in the UK today?
Well done. Team, just to interrupt, we've got 8 minutes left. I'm going to make a housing call here, and we're going to break budget. Whoever comes in with the best question on Zoom, on LinkedIn, on any of the platforms, I'm going to send them a big box of Quality Street. Whoever comes in with the worst question, I'm going to send them a bottle of Blue Nun. You got 8 minutes. We want your best questions and your worst questions, but keep it clean. It's very unique to have someone like Hattie here, especially with her travel globally. Hattie, just whilst we wait for these questions to come in and people to win the Quality Street, would you recommend agriculture, farming as a career to get into?
Massively. I nearly didn't make it into the sector, which I panic about sometimes. So both granddads farmed, both parents left farming because of various reasons. Mum was 10th out of 11 and dad was sent off to the army. So I didn't grow up on a farm, but kind of had that relationship from granddad, so to speak. And I went to do economics at uni. And at the end of the 3 years, thought, this is awful. This is really, really awful. And luckily kind of saved myself by doing a master's in climate science and then getting a job straight out of uni working with farmers on climate resilience. For people, I mean, you don't have to be a farmer to work in agriculture. I think that's very plain these days. I would love to. I keep dreaming of a micro dairy, which
on the Isle of Lewis.
Some farmers might not call farming, but micro dairy, etc., etc. But it's such a privilege to work in agriculture and with people and with animals and outside.
Hattie, I've got to come in. You sort of stole the question. Tom from where are we from Northumberland? Would you like to run your own dairy business, and if so, what sort of size? So just reiterate again.
I do dream. I think if I were to really go for my own dairy system, I would love to give it a shot. I'd go for a block system. Don't know what block yet, but I don't know. I want that little break before everything starts going through. But I love my job and I love my position as well. So I do keep dreaming of this little micro dairy, 10 cows, raw milk at the side of the road. I don't know whether that's
guys, we can organise that, can't we? With our network, we can push that.
Crowdfunding for Hattie's net.
Just take 10 marks. That will do.
Yeah. Mark, do you want to go for the anonymous attendee question rather than Hugh Williams, who's asking about his mate Dan Jones? That's a story for another time. Go, Mark. Ooh.
Yeah, I should be paying attention, shouldn't I? So, how anonymous question come in, Hattie? How can we encourage adoption of these mindsets, technologies, changes for the long term when the short term feels like there's so much uncertainty?
Yeah.
Particularly, currently we've got milk price drops and all the other shenanigans that farms are facing.
Yeah, there's a bit of a sometimes when I thought about this topic in the early days, it was kind of like, oh, am I just adding to the stress of the industry right now? Everybody seems a little stressed. Am I just putting another problem up there? But I genuinely think we need to encapture it in a way that is a solution to multiple problems. And resilience is a bit fluffy at times, but it doesn't have to be. But it can be a solution to price variabilities. It's all about commodity buying as well. That's part of resilience. It's about succession planning. It's about making sure you have enough forage stocks. It almost encaptures a lot of the stress and a lot of the different things that people are talking about in the industry. We just need to get in gear as the industry. I'm not talking about farmers. We need to get in gear to make them tangible solutions which make sense that then farmers can pick up and run with. And it actually works. And that's peer-to-peer knowledge. You guys are a lot better at knowledge exchange than I am. But we need to frame it right, because if we frame it like perhaps we've done with carbon tunnel vision or different things like that in the past, we're not going to get as much traction and it's going to become another problem.
Well, it's something that both Mark and I are very passionate about. Is we've worked with that mindset change and how you get behavioral change, and there's different buttons that we can push, and I think so we need to get better at that, and so I'm very much looking forward to working with you and the environment team on how we do that. And I said it at the start of the broadcast, but I'm very much looking forward to see what comes from this. This feels like just the start, doesn't it? And
me too.
I said, let's go for a technical question. Can you answer Hugh Williams's second question, not his first question?
I don't know if you can see that, Hattie. He's asking about red clover, so I guess about silage, a bit more about forage production and things like that. The different species in millets and how we can use different species, different techniques of forage production.
So the people that I spoke to this year who had established multi-species lays were better off in the drought periods. I think that's all about encouraging organic matter and drainage and et cetera, and holding on to that water. So it's obviously, if you can't establish a multi-species lays, or you've had difficulties with that in the past, saying chuck in a load of herbal lays for your drought resilience and drought tolerance isn't going to sound like the best solution in the world. But again, you don't have to do 20% of the farm. You have to do a little plot and see if it works and crack on, etc. So yeah, Hugh's right. Red clover, certain other multi-species lays varieties has been proven to be drought tolerant. A lot of people have turned to whole cropping this year in order to provide more forage. Maize has done really well this year, so perhaps their forage silage hasn't, but their maize silage has. And obviously, price of concentrates was very forgiving to us this year. The milk to price ratio was good and helped a lot of people out of a sticky situation. So we just need to be keeping an eye on that in the future as well. If we need to forward buy, just in case. What if we get another drought next year?
Boom.
You know, that's the question.
Team, we're running out of 50p's for the meter. Mark, do you want to wrap up for us?
Yeah, no, thank you, Hattie. We can carry on for another couple of hours on this. This is really fascinating stuff. But the key thing I've written down is we need to get on with it now, in terms of making some adaptations and looking at businesses to make change. And like you said, there's massive amounts of options out there. They're not going to cost millions and millions of pounds to invest, which some will. But there's some simple, practical, tangible things like adding a water tank in, or looking at how long you keep your cows in to avoid that heat stress, as an example. But it's all about the people, and it's all about that mindset change and looking at things slightly differently and pushing things forward. And then the other little point that stuck with me is look at the boring stuff. We collect loads of data, but actually if you're collecting it, then actually utilize it for the benefit to hopefully proactively forecast where your business is going and where the world is going. But yeah, we need to collaborate more. We need to utilize all the organizations to better support farmers. But no, thank you so much for a great whistle stop tour around the world on climate resilience.
Isaac, over to you.
Yeah, there's for everybody that has dialed in and will be watching this on catch up and all the rest. Thank you for you and the questions that were sent in. I'll leave it with you, send Max, to get the quality street out. But of course, to Hattie, and from the moment I saw Hattie at the Nuffield interview, thought you're going to be something special on your journey, and at the conference and today as well. So yes, and thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you in advance for all the things that we will be doing with you at AHDB and working together. What somebody put up there, anonymous, about surely this is all about collaboration between vets and consultants and everybody. And yes, couldn't agree more. So yes, and very excited about and what is still to come. And some great job on the report and everything that's come so far. And just a reminder to everybody, if you're listening in, so this is our 50th broadcast. There are this one and 49 others that you can go back and look at, and dive into there, and look at all the other stuff that we've done as AgriLeader, but also as AHDB, and the wealth of knowledge and some information that comes out of AHDB. So dive into that. If you are watching this live or in the next week, Merry Christmas. Otherwise, and Happy New Year and Happy Easter, Hanukkah, all the rest. Well
done. And team, the worst question, Hattie, am I really going to ask you this? Who do you think is going to be the best fairy out of us three to go on Isaac's tree? And that's not you, Hattie. Out of probably best not answer that one. Oh, hello.
Well, I think it's Isaac. Yeah, I think it's quite obvious, if I'm honest.
And that, everyone, is a wrap. Hattie, well done. Thank you, everyone.